I'm Chewy Mew, and welcome to my channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the ToyBiz Spider Power Dr. Octopus. So I got this guy used at a thrift store, and this Doc Ock is kind of cool, and we're going to take a look at this guy. So I think we better hop into him. Not hop inside of him, but like, okay, never mind, no hopping. We're just going to review this figure. And really quick, it's really hot, and I can't see, and I can't breathe. So, yeah, let's do this. Why be easy when you can just die? This packaging isn't Doc Ock's packaging, but this is the closest physical representation I have of it. But here's how it actually looks. It's got that nice 90s Spider-Man logo at the top, along with a rather pissed-looking Spider-Man, a nice Spider Power logo at the bottom, and a little picture of the figure here with a subtitle that reads, "With Arm Assault Octobot." Oh, and you can see the figure too. On the back, it turns out this is actually Series 2 of Spider Power, even though I thought there was just one series, but okay. You get a write-up of Doc Ock and a list of the other figures in the wave, and instructions on how to use the Octobot. Speaking of the Octobot, I don't have it, but it looks interesting. You remove the tentacles from his back and then attach them to the Octobot, clip Doc Ock to the backpack, pull the lever, and the tentacles get jostled around in an attempt to take down Spider-Man. Like I said, I don't have the backpack, but this is the closest approximation to the gimmick as I have. But given the length of these tentacles, it'd be rather hard for him to actually hit anyone with these things. You can take them off the Octobot and put them on Doc Ock, which, let's be honest, that's what everyone would do with this figure. Taking a closer look at the tentacles, they're molded in this silver, kind of squishy plastic. It has all the grooves sculpted very nicely, including the claws, or fingers, claws, pinchers, or whatever these things are called. They have an interesting design to them, which I'm not too familiar with from any comics, but they look good. Two of them are molded onto the actual tentacles, while the other two are separate pieces that are glued on. The highlight, though, for these things is that they have a bendable wire in them. They move around decently, but the plastic is a bit too hard, that it kind of results in them having pretty limited range. Them also being short doesn't help either. Here are the tentacles next to the Sinister 6 box set version, and you can see the wild difference in length between these. Obviously, the Sinister 6 tentacles are better in almost every way, but I would say the Spider Power tentacles are just pretty much good enough for this figure, but they're honestly going to be in this pose most of the time. You can tell that mine has these green pieces coming off of them, and that's because I customized these. They didn't really plug in too properly into the body due to it being old and used. Glued these wires into them so they would hold the tentacles in place, and since the holes on his back weren't deep enough, I just drilled some tiny holes, plug them in, and now they can be swapped around easily. But originally, they had this large square hole on the back that was hollow, and then he had these pegs with square ends that plugged into his back. You'd stick the tentacles onto these pegs, and then he'd be ready to go. But unfortunately, just due to these being old, the pegs are kind of loose and they just fall off of his body, or they just swivel on their own. This Doc Ock comes with 2 sets, 8 tentacles in total. And these tentacles here, which aren't as good, unfortunately. I mean, they're not terrible. They have a cool gimmick to them. I guess you could call it a gimmick, where they're made out of this straw-like material. You know those plastic straws with the bend in them? That's essentially what these are. You can squish them, extend them, bend them around, and add all the little segments on them. They're just really fun to fidget around with, even when they're not on the figure. Remember the wire used on the other tentacles? Put the same wire through the holes, and that way they also stay into the figure properly. It also makes them more sturdy when posing, because originally they're kind of floppy and they wiggle around. And you can mix and match the 2 sets of tentacles with each other, which is also pretty fun. The tentacles are definitely the highlight of this set, but the Doc Ock isn't too bad either. If this being a 90s figure, I mean, it's not going to have the same quantity of articulation and paint compared to 2000s ToyBiz, which is understandable. It has that glossy, plasticky look to it that I keep complaining about, but it's not too bad on this figure due to having a lot of painted sections as well. His gloves and boots are painted this lemony, I can't say that word. It's this nice lemony yellow. They're painted yellow. That looks kind of like lemon. And they're this lemony, I can't say those words, dude. Come on, here we go. They're painted lemony color with a mustard yellow shading over it. And the shading is more obvious in some sections, but it isn't overwhelming on this figure. The bottom of the feet have peg holes that work on any ToyBiz base, for example, Sinister 6 Doc Ock. And his right foot says 1999 Marvel ToyBiz, and the left foot says Made in China. So as far as the head sculpt goes, his hair is dark brown on the top of his head, with black coloring on the rest of it. It's strangely painted. His glasses are light blue with white lenses. He's got a big nose and small ears, and he's got some nice face wrinkles. I don't think it looks all too terrible, but it probably could look better. He also has a bit of a beer belly going on, His outfit is this muted light green color with a bunch of wrinkling throughout, and a very dark green shading applied in between each of the wrinkles. Okay, so I know I said there isn't as much paint on this compared to 2000's ToyBiz, but it's honestly pretty comparable. This actually rivals Sinister Six Doc Ock in the paint department, and this clothing, crotch piece, what is this called? So I'm just gonna call it a loincloth, I guess. I don't know, dude. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first release of this body mold, and it was later given new forearms, hands, different tentacles, head, different colors, a lab coat overlay, and a sort of tentacle control belt here. And that was used for the Spider-Man Classics Doc Ock, which was later modified again for the Sinister Six Doc Ock. And so my complaint with both of these figures is the lack of a waist section. It makes his body look like he goes from like the end of his stomach to his groin, and just looks really weird. My Classics Doc Ock has a custom sculpted waist in order to fix this. Spider Powers does technically have the same issue, but his loincloth thingy increased the length of his midsection just enough to simulate a waist. Also, pre-customizing the tentacles, they could be swapped with Sinister Six and Classics Doc Ock just due to the way the port works. The tentacles don't look out of place on either figure though, so you could swap them if you wanted to. So let's go over the articulation now. So the head rotates all the way around, the arms also rotate all the way around. They go up a little bit past 90 degrees, a single bend in the elbow and a rotation in the waist. The left leg kicks up higher and the right one can barely move. The legs on this body mold, like on Sinister Six, actually kick up way higher. It's just his loincloth's peeved. Single bends in the knees, the ankle goes forward a little bit and it goes back a little bit more than forward. So yeah, honestly not the best articulation on this guy. But it being a 90s ToyBiz figure makes it kind of excusable. So here's next to Sneak Attack, Silver Sable, and Madam Web. Animated Series Chameleon and Cyborg Spider-Man. His body parts, not like his height, but his body parts look too big compared to 6-inch figures. Here he is next to Sinister Six Spider-Man, my first ever Spider-Man figure. Spider-Man Classics Magnetic Spider-Man. And you can see, he looks like he kind of goes in scale with these, but he just looks like a really, really short dude. Which Doc Ock is supposed to be a little bit taller than Spider-Man. Here he is with Spider-Man Classics Doc Ock, Sinister Six Doc Ock, and the Marvel Legends Series 8 Doc Ock. Here he's with some other villains. We have Onslaught, Build-A-Figure Wave, Green Goblin, Sinister Six Electro, and Spider-Man Classics Series 2 Rhino. And for the Hasbro comparisons, we've got Retro Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man 3 New Goblin, and the toy version of Cyborg Spider-Woman. I realize these size comparisons are pretty random, but people love doing them, and I think it's cool to compare them to figures that people usually don't show. So, yeah, that was the ToyBiz Spider Power Doc Ock, and it's pretty cool. Like, you know, I did some customizing to make it better, and I think if you were to find this guy cheap on eBay or, like, used or whatever with the tentacles, I definitely recommend getting it. But yeah, so overall, I kind of like it. I like the color scheme. I like his weird, like, loincloth thing. I don't know what this is called, but I think it looks cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all for this video. Let me think about this figure. If you like the video, you know, let me know. If you want to see more reviews like this, you know, subscribe. And let me know what you think about this figure. And I'll see you guys in the next review. Wow.